We are well into the federal election campaign. The promises coming fast and furious. Now we have the Liberals unveiling a tax plan aimed at giving Canadians a break on their income tax. This, of course, after the Conservatives vowed tax relief for low-income earners just last week. Jamie Golombek, Managing Director of Tax and Estate Planning at CIBC Wealth Advisory, joined us last week for the Conservative plan, joins us now, and now we have a Liberal plan in front of us. What do we make of it?
Well, I mean, the big announcement, of course, was the increase in the basic personal amount. So every Canadian gets a basic amount. Now it's just over $12,000. That amount is tax-free. So if you make under that amount, you don't pay any tax. And the way it effectively works is a credit. So the credit at the lowest income level is 15%. So anything under $12,000, effectively, you don't pay tax. The Liberal is planning to increase that credit over a number of years. So ultimately, it will hit $15,000 over a few years. That's about a 15% increase. And that means that anyone making under $15,000 a year won't pay any tax. It also means that, of course, everyone on the first $15,000, except for the wealthy, will actually get a tax break, because the increase of the basic personal amount means that everyone will pay a little bit less tax unless you happen to be in one of the higher tax brackets.
Of course, you added the caveat there, unless you are wealthy. There is a cap to that, and you get over a certain individual income and you will not be able to. I guess, so what does that mean? That means your basic personal amount would be the old amount?
That's right. That's exactly right. So what the government is, what the proposal would be is that if they were elected, the Liberal would do is they would actually phase out this new increased credit once your income's over the fourth bracket, which is about $147,000 right now. It'll be fully phased out when your income's in the highest bracket, over $210,000. So rather than have a universal sort of tax cut, which is what the Conservatives had announced, this would be a very targeted tax cut. It'll affect, of course, most people who are in the lower and middle income brackets, but for the highest, the wealthiest of Canadians, they will actually phase out and eliminate for the top 1% the entire benefit of the increased basic exemption.
That seems to follow the theme of things we had seen during the first 4 years of their mandate. The Conservative plan, though, we talked about it last week. So they're suggesting we take down the tax rate for a certain bracket. Then that affects everyone, no matter, as long as you make more than that, you can make $1 million a year.
Well, that's exactly right. So the universal tax cut is what I think what the Conservatives called it, is literally universal. So in other words, no matter what income level you are, if you're the lowest bracket, the middle bracket, the high bracket, because we have a progressive tax rate system in Canada, we have 5 federal brackets, that means no matter what income you are, if they shave the rate off the lowest bracket, everyone is saving a little bit, unless, of course, you're already non-taxable. You won't save anything. But everyone would benefit equally, depending on how much of your income falls into that lowest bracket of $47,000. So it really is universal. This plan's different. This plan says we're going to target people in lower middle income, the Liberal plan, and we don't want anyone in the high income brackets to benefit at all. And they say that explicitly in the material.
Now, once you're in that high income bracket, would that make that much of a difference to you if you start crunching the numbers?
Again, it doesn't make a big difference between the two plans. We're talking about, possibly a few $100s a person when you actually do the math on it. But at the end of the day, I think it's the principle of it in terms of, when you're trying to choose, economic platforms of which party you vote for. Should it be universal? Should a tax cut be universal? Should everyone benefit? Or do we really give those tax cuts to the people who, theoretically need it the most? The same argument why we have progressive tax systems. Why do we tax the lowest amount of income at the lowest percentage rate? Has to do with ability to pay and things like that. So it's really interesting, if you look at both sides of it, to see the economics behind the tax policy that's going on here.
All right, so those are the promises from the two front runners, as we would perceive them from the polling that we get every day. But How about the NDP? They're talking about just straight going after the super wealthy.
They are. There's big wealth tax proposals over there. I think they're planning to increase, or they made a statement about increasing the capital gains inclusion rate, 75%, which we had almost 20 years ago. So there certainly are things there that would tax the wealthiest of Canadians. So a very different plan than the other two parties.
Do we have any sense when we look at either this country or other countries that once you start to ramp up taxes on the super wealthy, they have resources to find a way around that?
Yeah,
not evade, but avoid. Avoidance is legal. You hire smart people to help you avoid certain things.
Absolutely. So, I mean, certainly there is evidence on that in terms of tax planning. There also is mobility issues as well, depending on the type of person you are and type of job that you have. If you're in the tech sector and you're mobile, you could move theoretically to the States. If you are a medical professional or other type of professional and you have mobility and you have the ability to pick up and go somewhere else, there are taxes do make make a big part of that decision. So not to mention, of course, what you said is tax planning. We find that when rates get high, and we do have rates of over 53% in several of the provinces in Canada right now, people do engage lawyers and accountants, and they look at everything they can do to try to reduce their tax legally.
Now, also, when I think about giving more money, putting more money in the pockets of the middle class and perhaps low-income earners, I guess an economic argument has been made that they're more apt to spend it because they'll go buy groceries or they'll go buy clothes with it. They won't put it away.
Right, so exactly. The higher income people, typically speaking, if you look historically, have more discretionary income and also have more ability to save. So in other words, if you're trying to stimulate the economy and trying to get spending done, will the wealthier people spend more? They may, but ultimately a large part of it would go to savings, whereas of course people in lower brackets have less of a capacity to do that savings.
Interesting stuff. I know we'll have more to discuss next week, Jamie.
For sure.
Jamie Golombek's the Managing Director of Tax and Estate Planning at CIBC Wealth Advisory Service.